In 2019, y'all rebranded from MobilityWOD, world-renowned brand, into the Ready State. So I'm just curious about that rebranding process. Did the mission change? And two, what are some brief challenges that y'all ran into to remind people who you were?
Such a fair question. So one of the things that we saw was that as we realized that we had information that would help more and more people, MobilityWOD was a technical term that was non-specific and didn't sort of capture what we were doing. Mobility work out of the day. It was made more complicated by this company called GoWOD and RomWOD, which, GoWOD basically took our course, took our book, and then put it into an app, and they did a crappy job of it. So really iterative, poor iteration, but also by making that name, just sort of drafted on us. And RomWOD, which was, they're fine people, but did range of motion work out of the day. That's not confusing at all. And yin yoga, and suddenly
I was going to say Ashanti yoga. When I looked at it, I was like, this was Ashanti yoga.
It's Ashanti yoga. That's exactly right. Which is fantastic.
Yeah, which is great.
But once again, let me just say that was a conversation we were having a lot of. Well, why are you different than RomWOD? I'm like, well, we're fundamentally different, but we have very similar names because they named themselves after us. So one is that we knew we needed to change our name just because. Remember the CrossFit, when you were CrossFit something or other, and then you didn't have any control over your brand. And I can come train at CrossFit Balboa and train with John Wellborn. I can go down the street to blank and blank CrossFit. And it was people were like, aren't they the same? And you're like, well, they're a little different, but you wouldn't know because of the name, right? I think that's fundamentally a problem with, this model, that old model. So we also realized that, we wanted to cast a bigger net.
I was really hoping for you guys to rebrand as Flash Mob.
Oh, I tried to buy Dick Wad and it was already taken.
I think I might own that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I might have. You should have called me. I would have given you the URL.
I'm not surprised that you're the person who owns it. So it's not too late. We can still do something with that. One of the, E.O. Wilson, evolutionary biologist, evolutionary psychologist, one of my favorites. And he has this idea that the highest calling of science to inform the humanities. Like we're supposed to use science to change people's lives, right? That's ultimately what the highest calling of science is. And there's pure science we should have, but a lot of science should be to inform our lives. Well, I really like that idea for fitness and strength and conditioning. The idea of strength and conditioning is to transform people's lives, right? And I really will say, well, is that true? Is that what we're doing right now? I'm like, well, we're fatter, we're more diabetic, we have more ACL injuries, we have more spine injuries, more surgeries, more depression, more suicide. Choose something you give a shit about and then ask, is it working? And what you'll see is it is not working. So one of the things that, I think one of the reasons Power Athlete has been so dominant and so true for so long is it was born in the crucible of application. This is what we know about how to make athletes go fast and be powerful. And then we're going to take those principles and apply them backwards towards mortal people. So what we realized is that, man, I had all of this information about Formula One concepts. How do I manage a team? Who owns pain? How do we reduce the session costs so that you can work harder tomorrow? How do you downregulate and feel less stress and fall asleep faster? And my laboratory was sport and performance. And that was the only thing, because remember, there's more variation in waltzing than there is in sprinting. So I live in sprinting. And all of a sudden I was like, well, let's go ahead and try to help the rest of humanity. Let's apply these lessons backwards to moms and dads and families and kids. And that necessitated a change about, being, what do you want to be ready for? And, I had defined ready state in the very first set of notes I had ever created in the course after working for, as a young intern for the John Wellborn CrossFit football course.
Very true. Very true. And you know what? Kelly was such a star that CrossFit got so scared. They, a week later, gave him the course that he had been fucking pitching to them for 2 years. Yep. So, dude, Kelly pitched him this course. We don't want it. They show up, they see Kelly present with me, and he had his course the next week. It was...
True fact.
It was first of all, fuck them. But two, congratulations. But it's so amazing that those people wouldn't move until they saw something that they got. I mean, it was almost let us know that we were doing something right.
That's right.
When they were that scared, we were like, oh, fuck, I guess we're headed in the right direction.
That's how you know, right? So
it's the Ali G, right? If video games have taught us anything, when you encounter bad guys, you're going the right way.
Dude, that is great. I'm going to give you credit for that twice, John. That is really fantastic.
Yeah, Ali G.
Ali G. So, here we are. I was talking about saying, well, how do we create the most readiness with our athletes, given their life, given the demands of the team, given their injury history, and really good strength and conditioning. And when I say strength and conditioning, I'm talking about performance, is really managing what you can manage and saying that's got to be enough. Let's trust the athlete to go out there and be an athlete. So here's the best food we can give you. Here's the best sleep we can give you. Here's the best coaching we can give you. Here's the best movement prep. And then you're just going to have to control what we can control and some of that stuff we can't control, right? That's sport and that's life. So that was the original concept of the Ready State. And, when I was like, hey, we really need to change the name. This was, probably a year and a half before, or 2 years before we changed the name. I just told Juliet, I was like, hey, we should change the name. So I'm just going to go into the URL and just change the name. It'll be fine. And Juliet was like, hang on. There's a few more steps there. And I was like, no, we'll just change the name. I just go to Instagram and I'm like, change the name. And it's a gigantic process to rebrand. And it's like sticking yourself in the eye, all the SEO, all the search terms, and letting people know.
Website, social media.
I'm wearing the old MWOD hat because I was talking to my old school friends here, the whole thing. And, and we got punished. I mean, Instagram stopped us in place. We were, stratospheric growth. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, we've been throttled just like everything else. And then just letting people know. But guess what? You don't win the internet. You don't win social media. It's just a tool. So if your whole value statement is how many eyes or likes, good luck with that. If you got paid for every like you had or every follower you had, that'd be a different story, but it's just a vanity metric. And,
and for a whole bunch of people you don't necessarily know, not interact with, and people that aren't really considered your friends. Like I always think, like if there was an insight, like if you could list, let's say your 200 friends or like people that are close, like all of a sudden if I put something out, I should be able to go to see the insight whether or not Kelly Starrett liked it, or Tex liked it, or our friends or people within it. Like I don't really care for a bunch of people I don't know. If the people that are within my established circle like the content, then isn't that a better indicator than a bunch of people who I don't know?
I think you're 100% correct. And, one of the things that we've always tried to do, you and I both, is we're always coached at the back of the room. I'm always teaching at the back of the room because, really smart people are listening and they may not be commenting, but they are consuming listening. So you're serving them. You're not serving the loud voices. You're not, that's, to your point, some Joe Blow person doesn't like it. It has nothing to do with my job. My job is to continue to teach. And it's been interesting of late because, we've seen TikTok and Reels change this algorithm dramatically. Like I can't wait to see John Wellborn on TikTok. I'm just waiting for that day. That's beard oil. That's the sign of the apocalypse.
CBD beard oil.
What about CBD beard oil? I mean, with MCT oil.
I think this
CBD
podcast
and
is going to be
MCTB.
This is the most lucrative podcast ever.
Kelly, when you said beard oil, this is ironic because Tex and I actually talked about beard oil the other day, and when Tex was talking about beard oil, I almost kind of closed my eyes and I shuddered a little. I'm like, you realize beard oil jumped the shark. It's like hey, I'm starting my beard oil company. I'm like, oh, that's fucking great. I hope sink your life savings into that thing because what we really need is fucking more beard oil.
We're going to use the CBD and
and then when you brought it up, I was like, God damn it.
Just take CBD into your beard.
Oh, it's fucking.
It's I'm more paleo, so I use the coconut oil branded beard oil. It's just that's more organic.
You've led me to my final question, Kelly, and it's on your teaching ability. So I've seen you speak a number of times. One, in presenting your course. Two, we ran into each other. It was either NSCA or CSCCA.
CSCCA.
And then, CSCCA.
That was a small room. Do you remember that room full of every strength and conditioning coach in college? It was they're like, hey, you're up here. And I was like, oh, I'm in this room behind Cal Dietz.